And here we are, everyone. Welcome to the spoiler room, the last one of 2023. Kind of tear-eyed, but it's been an interesting year of films. I think Ian is still with us.
Yeah, I'm not dead, Mark. I didn't.
He did go running away screaming. So yes, folks, welcome once again. We are closing out the year and our month of She's Thinking Out Loud, where we've been looking at films with female protagonists or antagonists that have telekinesis abilities, and I thought this would be a great one to end it end the month, because for many reasons, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But yes, the crew with me tonight to talk about Friday the 13th Part 7, New Blood. And with me tonight, yes, you heard his dulcet tones. It's none other than Mr. Ian Simmons, the gentleman who keeps coming back for more. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this one.
Looking forward. I am as well. And along with us as well is back with us Mr. Joe Randazzo. He's with us.
I think I did your first one of the year too, didn't I? Or was Murder on the Orient Express the first one?
One of the first ones. Yeah. January. So we've come full circle. We're bookending it. And from the Literary License podcast, we have a new voice in the spoiler room, because I can never just keep the same things. We've always got to evolve. We've got a new voice. Mr. Sean Steffen is with us. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Ian. Hello, Joe. How is everyone tonight?
Awesome.
Excellent.
We're doing well and excited to talk about. By the time I finally stop doing podcasting, we'll probably cover all the Friday the 13th films at some point. We've done like 3, and I think we did 4, and we did 1 as a Patreon episode, and now we're doing number 7. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up the chair, and popping,
just bouncing around.
Yeah, your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. So, Sean, I hear you're a big fan of this movie, as I think we might actually have a whole room of fans tonight. But since you're the new voice here, you get the pleasure of doing the synopsis for this film. So go ahead.
Well, I will take the synopsis from my VHS copy that I have of this.
Oh, we're twinsies!
We're twinsies. I have loved this movie since I first saw it in probably the mid-90s on USA. It was the first one I managed to purchase from Blockbuster. This is my Blockbuster copy.
Oh,
and
nice.
I have been a long defender of this movie. So a quick synopsis for you. Ever since homicidal maniac Jason Voorhees got trapped in chains at the bottom of Crystal Lake, the nearby summer camp has operated without a hitch, without a murder. But one of this season's happy campers has brought along a deadly secret. Tina Shepard can see the future and levitate objects. Her doctor knows just how dangerous telekinesis can be, but he's out to exploit her, not help her. And now it's too late. Tina has accidentally unchained Jason from his watery grave, and the bloodbath is underway. Tina's special powers are her only hope for survival, but what chance does a teenage girl have against an axe-wielding maniac? Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood.
Was that VHS a fold-out? Jesus, how long was that synopsis?
He uses an axe.
No, it's not. Look,
I was going to say, he uses an axe.
He uses a hatchet. I don't know if he's using an axe.
He uses an axe on Starlacon.
The boyfriend, the one boyfriend.
Oh, that's right. He pulls it off
Preppy.
the stump. Yeah. Also, it's not really a secret that she has telekinesis.
No,
I think
it's going there because she has telekinesis, and the doctor wants to.
No, what I'm saying is that synopsis went on forever. It felt like it was a fold-out piece of text in that. And also, she was not a camper. She was not a happy camper.
She was not a camper at all.
She was
misleading, fake news.
Very misleading.
I think this person went on to write synopsis for Netflix when they were doing DVDs. So,
well, it's a good thing he has his VHS tape, because if I pulled my Blu-ray, it would probably be like Friday the 13th, Part 7, English. Probably the on the back of the Blu-ray.
Fairly accurate.
No,
Sean, I gotta ask though, real quick. You bought that copy from Blockbuster. Did you buy 2? Because that VHS, from what I can see, looks pristine.
I did buy 2 because a lot of my original copies were destroyed in a flood. Unfortunately, my basement flooded when I was a kid, and I lost a lot of my toys and a lot of my videos because I was a slob who kept a lot of stuff on my floor. Don't do that. Take better care of your physical media, everybody.
Yes.
But I rebought it, and I've kept this. It was around the time of DVDs, and I used to manage a Blockbuster, and we were getting rid of a lot of our old VHS stock at the time. So I said, well, I will take this one, and I will take this one. And if we're just going to discontinue it, I will, rather than throw it out and destroy it, we will keep these. So.
Yep. My copy I got from, there was a fundraiser for retired teachers in Point here, and they have a bag sale so that, you pay like $5 or $10 and you can fill the bag. Well, someone every year always donates VHS tapes. So I have the entire Friday the 13th collection in this near perfect condition, from 1 to Freddy versus Jason even. All of them.
That must have been one of the last VHS tapes then, because that's late. That's 2003.
The last VHS tape was A History of Violence, from what I understand. That's what the...
What the hell?
Oh, did we just lose Mark?
We just lost Mark.
Well, I can hear him still.
Well, History of Mark. History of Mark. History of Violence.
History of Mark.
The History of Mark. History of Violence came out 2 years after Freddy vs. Jason. So it was near the end of the VHS run.
When I was working, I remember when I worked at Blockbuster, we were phasing out VHSs and discontinuing all of them, starting to phase in Blu-rays, and they were doing the mail Netflix service or to compete with Netflix,
which I liked because
you could actually bring them into the store and return.
Yeah, I belonged to both Netflix and Blockbuster at the time, so I'd be getting stuff in the mail from Netflix and Blockbuster. I'd bring my Blockbuster rentals back, pick out a bunch of movies for each one that I brought back and take it home. And I thought that was revolutionary.
It was a great concept. And also you could talk to people and you could just rent whatever you wanted. And our store was famous because we were the only one that had a copy of Before Sunrise on VHS within a 50-mile radius. So that thing was like gold. The second it came in, if somebody was there and they saw it came in, can I have that? Oh, yeah, sure. And it was in and out within.
I need that Criterion Before trilogy. I need to grab that at some point.
Wait till the because it's like what, twice a year they have the
50% sale.
Yeah. I gotta look out for that one too.
Sorry guys, not sure what
back.
happened.
Not visually though.
No, not visually yet.
But you're here.
But I'm here. So in any case, sorry about that.
No worries.
Imagine this: you're tuning in for Friday the 13th, and we're talking Richard Linklater and Keely Delpy.
Oh, that's quite all right. Okay, so anyway, so I think we're all fans here of Friday the 13th Part 7.
I wasn't for a long time, and then recently in like 2020 during the pandemic, Sean got the new Blu-ray set from Scream Factory, and he was like, "Let's just go through all of them." And I hadn't seen most of them in so long because I really only liked a few movies from the series, but I have a much more appreciation for them now than I did, even as a teenager. Like I remember seeing Friday the 13th 7 a few times as a teenager, and it never really did anything for me. And I realize now it's probably because I kept watching it on VHS. And VHS is so muddy, and you can't see what's going on half the time. So I think that the clarity of actually being able to see stuff made it work for me now. In the case of One Shot, we may have seen too much now thanks to Blu-ray.
Yeah, according to the commentary track, one of the director's favorite shots of the movie is his tribute to the opening scene of Jaws.
Yes,
right up into a skinny
dipping woman
now. Yeah.
For now,
the transfer obviously knew what they were doing, but you see a way more than you. On VHS on everything, to the point that this movie has gotten a horrible rep for the cuts from the MPAA, and through the Blu-ray transfer, you could still get a lot out of the kills in the movie, and it's not nearly as bad as people give it. You get one of the best kills in the entire franchise with the sleeping bag kill.
Oh yeah,
and we were watching the deleted scenes and the extended cuts of the kills from the Blu-ray before, and we were in amazement of just how many times and what they were thinking. I think they swung her 6 times.
6 times. They swung her 6 times into the tree. And a little bit more like breaks off the sleeping bag, a little bit more drizzles out each time.
That's the thing. Once was enough. And
apparently Kane Hodder agrees with you, because Kane Hodder on the commentary was like, I think this is one of those rare times that
the MPAA had it right.
The MPAA actually made it better.
But it also has some other great ones, the punching through the back and then the snapping of the neck. I mean, that one is intense.
That one is a lot quicker. We watched, he wanted to watch the deleted and extended versions first. So we did that early in the day, and then we watched the movie, a couple hours ago, and it's so much quicker this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that effect is so cool though. And the head crushing,
specifically Ben. Head crushed when Ben gets his head crushed in the movie, it's just a quick thing. His head's getting smushed a little bit.
You see a little bit of the blood.
Blood coming out of both sides of the hands. In the in the deleted scenes, his head is smushed like a cabbage, and it's getting smaller and smaller, and it's like a rubber ball, and the whole thing, blood's shooting out of his mouth, blood shoots out of both his eyes. It's the most insane kill in the whole movie, and I get why they cut it, but it's one of those things where, I wish we had a cleaned up version. I wish they put this in there, because that's would have been iconic.
It was a bad It was a bad VHS render with a lot of static and a lot of tracking issues, and the original footage was destroyed. But I just wonder, because what we saw was covered up heavily by shadow. I don't know if that was cleaned up, if it would look good.
You're probably
right. If it's too cleaned up, then you can see the effect.
And that's what you run into with some of these restored older movies is when, it's what happened when they went to HD and everybody went to The Price is Right and went, wow, that set looks like shit. Because in HD, they were using the same set for 30 years and they could get away with it because it wasn't that high def. You couldn't see the cracks in the paint and the spackle, and now, especially some of these older films, you could see the cake makeup. The
old Batman 60s movie, you could see the mustache under Cesar Romero's grease paint.
To be fair, I could always see the mustache, even on 360p TV and whatnot. I could still see that mustache. But you're right. It's sorry.
Well, no, sometimes the effects too, the way they're made in those older films, they take into account lighting and shadow and camera angle and that to cover up the seams or hide the
camera tape.
So when you got it all blasting out now and everything's lit up, suddenly you could see the shark, and it's
that's the thing. I've always brought it. I'm like, as much as the Jaws, you see too much more in the opening scene. You could see the mechanisms of the shark operating when it first pops out. That first iconic shot of the shark, it's nowhere near as effective anymore. It works on some movies. I remember seeing Scarface on 4K for the first time, or Ghostbusters, and remembering how well they did with that. And I was blown away by those sort of transfers. But then you see something like even Jurassic Park. That movie still holds up. We watched that one recently, but then you see the transfer. I think True Lies is coming out next year, and there's a big controversy over it because Cameron used artificial intelligence to upscale it. And there's a lot of smooth. I've seen some images that have come out of Schwarzenegger's face. It looks like they've added in wrinkles in there where they weren't, and it looks like they've kind of lowered his lip a little bit to cover his teeth in certain shots. It can go either way, but
I'm confused. Okay, I can understand experimenting with technology. I can't understand letting that shit get out.
I know,
because that implies either someone leaked it or James Cameron saw it and said, "Yeah, that looks great," and then that's.
I want to say that both The Abyss and True Lies, the 4K versions, are available digitally, and they're not going to be available physically until next year. So, but some people have gotten these 4K releases out, and enough of the clips have been seeping out online that a lot of people have opinions.
Well, at least
say that.
At least with this, AI hasn't touched this one yet.
God,
Well, I don't think it ever will.
it never will. But
Paramount was always embarrassed by these movies. So.
That's the other thing. They had kind of reached the point in the franchise where they were experimenting, because 2 for 4 all take place in the same weekend. It tells a story, and we introduce Tommy Jarvis at the end. 5, they tried to do a new thing, literally a new beginning. They tried to go in a new direction, telling the story of Tommy. Maybe he's infected by the evil that seemed to be a theme with horror movies. You know, the survivor is infected by it and grows into more evil. But by the end of it, it didn't work. Everyone hated Roy. Everyone hated the reveal. So where do you go next? And they tried to do Freddy versus Jason. They tried to do it in 1987. That was the original idea for this movie. And at the same time, Freddy had the biggest hit of the entire franchise up until that point with part 4. Mm-hmm. So everything that we've looked into, they just say through legal reasons they couldn't do it. My own personal speculation, Freddy became too big and Paramount had too much of an ego. They probably wanted more of the cut because they had longevity and Jason had been around longer. And New Line was the little fish, so to speak. And New Line didn't need him at that point. Freddy was the juggernaut. So they couldn't come to whatever happened. And instead we get Jason versus Carrie. But again, you're doing a completely different experimental thing. Next up, you go to Manhattan. Next up, you reboot the franchise and you try to introduce Freddy at the end with your cliffhanger. Then we go to space in between. So we get into at this point, we're fully in the experimental phase of what can we do with this character.
Well, a lot of the slashers were at that point, though. I mean, you look at how many, you had when was Hellraiser Bloodline? That was up in space.
94.
95.
You had this period of time where the slashers were trying to stay relevant. And you had new slashers coming up. 88 was we actually did a whole year of horror of 1988 because there was so much horror in 1988. There was such a clout that it was crazy. And so you get this. Yeah, it's scary. Ian, do you remember when you first saw this? What'd you think of this? Because it is a separation from what you had seen pretty much in the past of the formula.
Not for me. This was one of. I'm trying to think. This wasn't my first Friday the 13th, but it was one of the first. I mean, it came out when I was 11, and I wasn't able to see it in the theater, so I think I saw it as sleepover probably the year after that. So I was like 12. But yeah, Jason was still new to me, and I don't think I'd seen all the movies leading up to this, so I had no context for whatever else was going on. So yeah, I loved it. It's weird because I watched it. I did a whole retrospective back in 2020 because I did a series called Friday the 40th where I went through the whole thing and actually got to do the last 4 or 5 shows with Lee Shoquist, a colleague of mine, and Peter Brackey, who wrote Crystal Lake Memories, and that was a lot of fun. But I revisited this one again for this show, and I had a completely different experience of when I watched it 4 years ago and 30 years ago or whatever it was. I used to love Lar Park Lincoln, and this viewing, I don't know, she really got on my nerves. I thought she was a much better actress back when I was younger, but even 4 years later, I'm like, oh no.
There's a little factoid about Lar Park Lincoln. She's the first actress to ever have to deal with both Freddy and Jason on camera.
That's true.
She's in the It's a Miserable Life episode of Freddy's Nightmares, where she's the girlfriend of John Cameron Mitchell. And he's dealing with the whole Freddy thing.
Were you saying that that's available on the Blu-ray set?
It's on the Nightmare on Elm Street Blu-ray set. That episode.
They have a couple of bonus episodes, and that's one of them. Yeah,
it's that one and the episode that Lori Petty's in are the two that are on the.
Okay.
So yeah, she's the first actress in history to have to deal with both Jason and Freddy. So it's a nice little factoid. If you're a Lar Park Lincoln fan, you probably know that, actually, if you're like a hardcore fan of hers.
Was she better in Freddy's Nightmares than this, or is it about the
same? Well, apparently she had a lot of issues with her male lead.
Kevin Spurtis, I mean, he's gay. Yeah. And it's funny because they didn't get along with each other. So like in that first scene where they meet, he's like helping her pick up her stuff in her lingerie, and then she kind of storms off. I'm like, I don't think there's much acting going on there. This is
that was the vibe that we were getting to. Is just like, it seems a little bit off. It doesn't seem like they're trying to be close, but far. It's something was off with it. But yeah, apparently they did not get along on set, and they just did not gel well.
Yeah.
We saw her recently on a riff tracks of
Inspector Mom
2.
Inspector, oh yes, with Winnie Cooper. Yes,
Winnie Cooper as a woman who is a mother and investigating murders that are happening in her small town.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yes, I heard of this.
The moral of this story is that there's people being killed in your nice suburban neighborhood. It's probably the poors. Because they're probably doing it to get some money because they don't have any money of their own. I remember being like, "Oh, that's an interesting moral." If there's murders happening, it's the poor people doing it.
It's the poor people.
There's actually a line of dialogue where she's like, "Well, this couple's having financial trouble, so they're very high on my list." Like, oh, yeah, of course they are.
Wow.
Kevin Spirtas, he's one of the only ones in this movie. Like Lar Park Lincoln, Kevin Spirtas, Elizabeth Catan, and Terry Kaiser are the only non-Jason performers that I think actually that I've actually seen in anything else. Mm-hmm. So this is it's rare for these movies too, because a lot of times with the Friday the 13th actors, all I see them in is Friday the 13th. Yeah. So you get the occasional like Tom Matthews and Corey Feldman,
right?
Yeah, they're the only ones that I can think of.
To be fair, Terry Kaiser, I mean, everyone, yes, he's Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, but he actually brings the chops to this. He's great as Dr. Cruz. He's carries a gravitas to him. He elevates the actors around him. I mean, Joe and I went to the world premiere of the R-rated cut of Tammy and the T-Rex, and he steals the entire movie with that as this weird, mad German scientist. And he's just one of those guys that, yeah, he played the dead guy, but he's got a lot of skill that he brings to the table, and he does elevate this movie a lot.
If you want to talk about screen chemistry, he has more chemistry with Lar Park Lincoln, because if there's ever a scene where she's smiling or happy or whatever, and what does she call him?
Bad News Cruz.
Bad News Cruz. Bad News Cruz comes in at any point. Yeah, she's done. She's emotionally just withdrawn. She's the mood of the entire room changes. So yeah, he brings a lot there. He had a lot of chemistry with her and with the mother.
Yes.
Also, you're saying she might have been, a little annoyed. I mean, she was probably. I can't imagine she was in much before this either. This was probably. This must have been very early, because she's like, she's a baby here, man. She's like early 20s, So,
it's funny you mentioned about other actresses, because the actress who played the young Tina, Jennifer Blanco, she's made it big now on social media, but she was in a number of horror films as a kid.
Leatherface.
She's
the little girl in
Leatherface.
Yeah, she's the little girl in Leatherface. So she made an early career as the young girl in horror films. Now she's on social media. She makes funny faces and such. And
we should point out the 1989 Leatherface, not the 2014 Leatherface.
Yes,
there's another Leatherface in 20. She's the little girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3
with Ken Foree, Kate Hodge, and Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah, which we actually
that one's got a great cast.
We did cover on the show for our the Saws Family Month. We did here. We did all four. We did those, and we even did Next Generation, which I will say I like.
Dear in my heart. I love that movie. It is such trash.
I like more now than I did back then, but it is still complete trash.
Oh my god, it's glorious trash though. Glorious.
But that's what I love about Friday the 13th Part 7 is probably my favorite of the series, next to Jason X. Yes, I will say it. I love Jason X.
I love Jason X too.
Absolutely.
I think Jason X is wonderful for what it is, what exactly they were doing. It was ballsy to do that take on Jason and that story, but at the same time, it's wonderful if you're a fan.
Self-aware.
You're wonderful if you're a fan. But I it does something different because I had grown up on the slashers. I mean, we all have for the 80s, especially growing up in the 80s, you had the slashers. They kind of had the formula. You had the final girl who would live, but at the same time, the final girl, you know, she made it. She was tough, but at the end, she was like really broken. But I timed it out, you know. Any final girl's confrontation, the majority of them, it doesn't last that long, except maybe your original Halloween, you know, before they turn it around, the tables around on their killer. She fights Jason for 15 minutes straight.
Yeah, that was one of the things that when that fight happened, I went and hit the timer. I'm like, I want to see how long into this movie, because that is a long final girl fight. You don't see a lot of those.
And especially with someone like Jason, who everybody is running from. Instead, she's facing straight on, throwing mind bullets at him in the form of nails, electrocution, just doing anything that she can, and holding her own, throwing a couch at him, bringing the roof down on him. And honestly, at this point, we should talk about Kane Hodder, because he brought that to life. He brought that character to life, and he took a lot of punishment in making this movie. You could tell just from all the stunt work that he was doing, getting lit on fire. He and also he carried himself as Jason.
Well, he's also so physically imposing.
That's the thing. The breathing, the grunting, the motions, the heavy chest breathing, just the slouch over, the movements, the slight looking. It wasn't the human wasn't the lost boy who grew up in the woods, who drowned in the lake and survived or whatever. This is a monster that is reborn. The
look of Jason in this is fantastic too. Like, I love
best look at Jason. I don't care what anyone says. It's the best looking Jason in the entire franchise, especially without it's the coolest looking.
When he comes up out of that lake, and you can see that it's half the movie's success with Jason in this instance is Kane Hodder, and the other half is John Carl Buechler, who came from an effects makeup background and is a solid director, as evidenced by this movie. But when Jason rises up out of the lake, the first thing you notice is that spine, that spinal column, just like almost like rippling. It's like Godzilla coming up out of the water. It's a magnificent reveal. It's as if this is the first time we're seeing Jason ever. He puts his, Buechler puts his stamp on this franchise. It's beautiful.
That's a good comparison to Godzilla. That's actually very, very good.
Yeah, he's very intimidating. This is the first. I mean, you got it in the previous film, but this, I think, is a better zombie Jason than we got in the previous.
Yes. Well, also, I mean, he's immediately woken up. He's still discovering everything. This is a Jason also has. We should talk about the timeline, because this is a Jason with about 10 years in addition, because he's been chained to the lake about 10 years or so. Yeah,
because she's a little girl when the movie starts. Right. So even if this movie starts the day after the events of 6, which I know it's not, some time must have passed.
The timeline, I think, is somewhere in the 2000s, technically, at this point, because we've moved ahead about 10 years from Tommy Jarvis initially, and now we've moved it again 10 years from her being at the bottom of the lake. 3 and
4 take place in the same weekend in 1981.
Okay, so 81, and then from there, let's say 81 to 91 to when we do 5, and or maybe
I don't know. Did 10 years pass before?
Well, at least 10 did by 6, and then probably because he's much older at that point,
right? Because Tommy Jarvis
he's like 12.
Final chapter is 12. Yeah. So we'll say he's like 20 in.
So this must be,
I'll say he's at a youth home, so we'll say he's 17, 18, or troubled youth. We'll say
New
17,
beginning,
new beginning, and then he's clearly in his 20s, at least early 20s, for
I'll say like 4 years, maybe. Yeah.
So we'll say at least 10 years have passed from that, and then we add an additional at least 10 years for.
So we're looking at the late 90s, early 2000s at this point.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Everyone still dresses like the 80s.
Yeah, I would say mid 90s.
Midnight. We'll say mid 90s.
I'd buy mid 90s, maybe. I mean, they still dress like the 80s, but
it's. This puts Jason Takes Manhattan in a completely different, inappropriate context if we're talking about the early 2000s.
That's true. Batman logo and everything in the front. in Times Square. Yeah, actually.
Also, it's Crystal Lake again. It's Crystal Lake again. It's not Forest Green anymore.
Yeah.
They changed the name to Forest Green because nobody wanted to remember what that maniac did out here.
Well, the people who wanted to keep it that way were dead, so they just went back to Crystal Lake.
Yeah, Jason takes out the entire police force. So yeah,
it's nostalgia.
That's why there's no cops in this movie. Jason killed them all. Molds them in half, crushes
them. There's firefighters, but no, yeah.
Yeah, we have that. We still have paramedics because he only got to a few of them in part 4.
Yeah.
So
instead of defund the police, he decapitated the police. That's what happened.
Yeah.
But you see, but with all the passage of time, you're actually seeing it through the form of Jason's deterioration. Because when we start the movie, he's still the beast who's chained underneath in part 6. You don't see it. But the next time we see him, that's when you see the skeleton. That's when you start to see the mask falling apart and the flesh decaying and everything like that. It's really cool that they went to that length to.
The thing I noticed was that at the end of part 6, he was still wearing those weird like dishpan hand like yellow gloves.
Yes,
right. And so the opening kind of montage where they show the end of part 6 and part 7. When he's down at the bottom of the lake, he still has the gloves on. When we cut to the present day, those gloves are gone. And as you mentioned, they've got the skeletal hands. It's just, they really took this movie seriously as far as in a lot of ways, which I don't think you can say necessarily about some of the previous entries.
And that comes from, a great effects man directing this. If there's one thing John Carl Buechler's going to get right, it's going to be the effects.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why I think this film is underappreciated because it's a gimmick film of sort. I mean, in that you have her doing, but it's all done within the seriousness of the franchise. I mean, they're taking it seriously and they set it up enough so when you get to the last 15 minutes where she's just throwing everything at Jason, you believe it. Not only that, you want to see this because you want to see if Jason's going to get through this now because we're dealing with a different Jason that we've seen really for most of the franchise. And I loved the setup. I loved how they handled the telekinesis part. It's a really well-crafted horror film for, the girl with telekinesis fights Jason. Well, there's actually a good lead up to that.
There's a solid little story about, her being manipulated by this doctor, taking her back to the most traumatic point in her life. And in rewatching it, I think that most of the cases, the victims in these movies are horribly underwritten. I think that everybody at the party house is kind of interchangeable.
Oh, they're fodder. Fodder.
They're all stock They're all stock slasher movie characters.
But with her, you feel for her character, you feel for her story, and more so than usually you do the other ones.
It's the only one they bother putting any characterization in as the final girl.
I will say this actually, Melissa. She is one of the bigger bitches in the history of this franchise. And you usually do. And I'm only saying that because you need to have a good bitchy character who's just kind of snide, the mean girl. You need that in these movies. And she plays it perfectly because from the moment that you see her,
such an asshole.
She is a complete, there goes the neighborhood. What the fuck? What did she do? She got out of her car. What?
She's one of the pores.
Oh,
she's one of the pores.
That's it. Maybe she's committing murders in suburbia, Joe.
She's not rich like us, so she's got to be a bad person. It's a class thing. But yeah, it's
you're putting this to my mind. Is she up to this point? Is she a unique archetype in this franchise? Because a lot of the other campers, counselors, whoever in the Friday the 13th series, we haven't had, I don't think, a real bitchy character.
We haven't, not to that degree. There's always a person that's very unlikable. I'd say the guy, Joe, you remember the actor's name, but the guy who played Fackler in Police Academy.
He's
the sleazy
he's the morgue attendant. Yeah, the hospital morgue attendant at the beginning. Yeah,
you always have
but I'm talking about like one of the main characters of the
I can't think of anyone that was just a complete asshole like that because all the counselors always got along to some degree.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
actually, that is. I mean, you'd see it in slasher movies, but might be the first time you'd see it in Friday the 13th that I can think of.
Maybe some of the characters in A New Beginning, but that's we've discussed.
That's like its own like Elseworlds.
That's mainly direction of these characters that have turned.
Everybody in that movie was a Melissa,
pretty much. But no, she plays that so well that you're rooting for her to get killed, which is what the bloodlust in everyone.
Same with Dr. Cruz.
Same with Dr. Cruz.
Terry Kaiser is such a good like you were saying, he's a good second tier villain that
he's a great slime bag. Yeah, he always plays a great slime bag. And yeah.
He's fantastic at it. So yeah, he was. They both were great. But yeah, you make a good point there. There really hasn't been that kind of second tier villain.
Well, what's even more interesting is how long she actually survives for being the bitchy character. She's the second last person, that actually is killed in this film, which is kind of surprising for the bitchy character. Usually it's like halfway point, you want her killed, and then you get but she actually survives. And even when they come running in, they're like, no, look, there's this crazy maniac out killing people. She's like, you're all fucking nuts. I'm leaving.
Whack the head with the axe
because she's
whipped into the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I love about her character is that she is so. I don't know if it's like a meta commentary on privilege or if they're even thinking about these lines in 1988. But she's so protected that she can like wander around these like locations where everyone is being killed left and right and have no clue that anything weird is going on.
Totally oblivious.
Well, that is a trope of these movies because nobody knows anything is going on until the final girl starts finding the bodies in the last 20 minutes or so. But I think I would believe that it might have been a commentary on that because I'm pretty sure that a lot of these directors and filmmakers. I lived in Hollywood for a little while. You are going to meet some people who are very, very privileged.
Well, there was a line where she was talking about her daddy got her pearls and everything like that, and the pearls that were destroyed. So I mean,
my daddy gave me a pearl necklace, though. I don't know. It could be.
You gotta pay a price.
Could be.
Is there a little more meaning behind that? I don't know.
Wait, did she say her father or her daddy? Because
I don't remember if it was father or daddy, and that is very important.
Her daddy might have given her a pearl necklace too. Yeah, maybe she was a sugar baby. Who knows?
But my father was over in the closet watching through the slats.
She was like 30.
But yeah,
but even. What I also kind of found interesting with this Jason versus maybe some of the others, I don't remember him being a collector. He literally has a body collection in this one.
Oh, he's been collecting since the jump because they had the cabin in part 2 and
part 2.
I guess
you'd find like the body would like swing out over a door frame or something like that, and it'd be like one of them. Who was it? Was it Crispin Glover's body? I think was like nailed to a door frame. Like kind of crucified against it. So you had that
nail ripping out of the hand as he was trying to bust through the door.
That was in part 4.
Yeah, but he kept all the bodies in one place. I just love when she stumbles across like his collection. And one he took the time to nail to the tree after she was dead. It was like she was dead, and he nailed her to the tree afterwards.
He's an efficient killer because not only he's killing them,
well, it's clear he found a tool shed. He found a tool shed, so he had access to more toys to play with.
That's one thing that gets me is they make it a point to show how he got every weapon except for the lawnmower thing that he kills Dr. Cruz with. That just comes out of nowhere.
That's one of my favorite things in the movie. Terry Kaiser thinks he gets away. He's leaning against the tree, and then. Shit. And even you as a viewer, you're like, okay, where are we going with this? This is a chainsaw. Nope.
He's got like a weed whacker, and he's like, he's gonna rip you to shreds with it.
There's so many good moments in this movie that just kind of stand out, and everything. It's a collection of everybody coming together to make it work. Whether it be the director and the effects, the acting from Jason, the victims of the movie. It's I don't know.
So there was one thing, the ugly girl. I don't think she's ugly at all.
Not ugly at all. She's all that syndrome where you take off the glasses and you do the hair. Oh my god, you're beautiful.
Talking about?
No, she's a lovely woman. I'm like, what the hell?
Is it because she's smart? Is that the thing? She's smart, so nobody wants to give it a shot.
Integrity, unlike Elizabeth, she didn't want to go do drugs with the guy, and so I'll win him over.
Elizabeth K-Tan, like I fucking the one stoner guy. Every time he fumbles around, she's like, oh.
The way he opens his beer and spills it all over himself. Oh god. Yeah.
Well, the way he apparently bumped his head. He's like, I don't know who put that wall there. And she's like, oh. He's so stupid, but I'm gonna bang him.
Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, the characters are just perfectly written for this movie. You don't need to go more than that. They are just written just enough.
Yeah, they're stock slasher characters. Elizabeth K-Tan is the hot, easy girl who's gonna bang somebody and get killed. And as we saw, actually, one of the things we saw when we were watching the deleted scenes is she had a completely different death.
Yeah, but she
was slashed with like a machete that Jason has, but apparently, and this could have gone a lot worse from what she was discussing in the documentary. She's like, yeah, because I was like, why did they cut that out? That wasn't that violent. And then we find out that apparently it's because the prosthetic that she was wearing under her shirt apparently moved, so it didn't look as realistic. I'm like, well, you're lucky that's all that happened. If the prosthetic moved and they swung a machete at you, that could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah,
we could be talking about the late Elizabeth K-Tan if that would have gone worse, and that would have been the end of the series.
That might, my problem with her death is that she gets thrown out of the window and then she just like kind of thuds onto the dirt in the rain. But we saw a much better version of that in Friday 4 with one of the twins, gets plopped onto a car. I mean, that's a hard act to follow. And I feel like if you're going to bother with that, you got to top it, not just, she'll.
Yeah. And also, that's not Elizabeth K-Tan getting tossed from the window. That's a stunt man. And she comments on it because she's like, he's got these thick tree trunk legs. And she's like, everybody's coming up to me going, you've got such muscular legs.
Oh. Well, you talk about the unattractive girl who isn't unattractive. She's also the one that I think she survives the longest being chased by Jason.
Yeah,
as well, which I really liked and I thought was interesting for her character, considering how quickly the others are fairly dispatched. I mean, Yuppie Boy, he literally is busy, though he's got all the blood rushing to somewhere else, so probably a little dumb at that point, because his girlfriend is skinny dipping in the pool. So okay, I get that. His girlfriend gets dispatched. Pretty much everybody
try to run. He just kind of backs up.
But she's the one that she's like playing the cat and mouse game with Jason. And I love that whole sequence in the shed where she crawls under the wall. She comes back, though, he's setting it up. I mean, he does the telltale, you got the wall here. You see Jason here. You see her there. You're just waiting for it. You're like, nah, he's gonna, but he doesn't stab her through the door. He busts through and
he comes around with both arms and a sickle.
And a sickle, yeah.
Pretty awesome. And she has a great scream, by the way. I was
fantastic scream.
Yeah, her scream was it sounds weird to say, boy, I really loved her scream. But it's a horror movie.
I mean, it's a horror movie.
Yeah. It's a horror movie.
I don't understand why she didn't end up in more movies after this, because I looked her up and I'm like, aside from being just like a sorority girl in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, everything else I saw was like a documentary about Friday the 13th or a couple of like random TV movies, and that's it. She never really did anything else, and I feel like there might have been a kind of a lost opportunity. I think the only person from this, or there's two that we could probably legitimately, no, maybe not Lark Park Lincoln, because she didn't really do much outside of this either. The only one we could probably legitimately call a scream queen is probably Elizabeth K-Tan, because she did all those Full Moon movies.
Yeah,
that's probably the only one. It's weird that we really never got like a career scream queen out of these movies that I can remember, at least. Because everyone else didn't really do much else as far as like becoming like a big star in the horror genre.
So
Yeah, they went to TV. A lot of them went to TV, but then again, actually, you could say that quite a bit about a lot of the bigger studio horror film actresses, that a lot of them, they got their Scream Queen rep for doing the B movie horror stuff more so than doing the big screen stuff. If, in all honesty, if you look at it, your Scream Queens, you look at them and the work they do, what they got known for wasn't really being in the franchise horror films. It's being in the B film. So if this is like the only horror, although I will say that our older Tina, Lar Park Lincoln, she was in House 2.
That's right. She was in House 2. Yeah.
She was in House 2, which is another fun movie. That's another one.
Wait, was William Cat in part 2?
No.
He was in the first one.
He was in a flashback. Like this one, where you don't need to see, folks, by the way, you don't need to see any other Jason movie if you watch it. So Ian,
that's kind of true. The opening montage will get you all caught up with everything.
It's Crazy Ralph narrating.
Yeah, you said that you saw this, but you hadn't seen the others, but you could follow everything that was going on in this when you first saw it, could you? Or
I watched the final I watched the opening 10 minutes of the final chapter when I was 8, I think, because it came on cable.
80s.
It came on cable. I nagged my parents to let me watch it, and so we sat down and watched it like during family dinner. And we turned it off. We turned it off right at the morgue scene where police academy guy gets his throat slashed and his neck turned around. But yeah, that opening montage of the other movies that I hadn't seen at that point, that freaked me out. That gave me nightmares for like a decade or more. Just imagining what was going on with the rest of those scenes. So yeah, it is a good catch up. Was that supposed to be Crazy Ralph doing the narration for
that is the actor. I don't think he's supposed to be Crazy Ralph, but it is the actor who played Crazy Ralph.
It is
Really?
Yeah.
Walt Gorney? It sounded nothing like him.
Yeah, it sounded nothing like the Crazy Ralph character, but it is Walt Gorney doing the narration. So that's super cool too. But yeah, with what Mark was saying, yeah, I mean, when I think Jamie Lee Curtis is the only like major, the only one that you could say came out of like the major horror movies that was a Scream Queen. Because when you think of anyone else who was a Scream Queen around that time, Linnea Quigley, Brink Stevens, Kelly Maroney, Barbara Crampton, they were all doing like Corman level stuff, Charles Band stuff. That's what they were the ones who produced like the. I mean, I don't know. What do you call them? The journeyman Scream Queens who are doing like everything.
Yeah.
Because Jamie Lee Curtis eventually graduates into like the A-level stuff. But, Linnea. Linnea's still doing B movies to this day.
Yeah, she is. Actually, I got to edit it, but I just reviewed the soundtrack LP release of Horror Workout. Linnea Quigley. They just released it, and it came with a signed picture. Plus, it comes with a liner note from an interview they did with her as well. So there's all kinds of stuff with it. But yeah, Horror Workout.
I just recently watched that for the first time this year, and it is instantly why this movie's being made, because before Linnea Quigley works out at anything, she starts out in the shower.
Well, yeah.
That's why this movie exists, right there. Linnea in the she's got to be the squeakiest clean actress in history, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone in the shower more than I've seen Linnea Quigley in a shower. Every movie she's in, or almost every movie she's in, I've seen her in a shower scene. In Witch Trap by Kevin Tenney, she gets killed in the shower.
Yeah, she's in the shower quite a bit, and it features her. It features her band in it, which I didn't realize it was a regular band. But I also recently got a screener and reviewed Scream Queen, because her Lost movie has been released now.
I wanted to grab that. I haven't grabbed it yet. Yeah, I got to get my hands on that.
And she sings in that one too, and I think
does she?
In that one. Yeah, there's a musical number in that one as well. But I mean, getting back to it, these Scream Queens, there's not many that have spawned from these franchises. And you mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis, but in all honesty, Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween, was an independent.
That's true. It became a juggernaut later. Yeah.
She became a juggernaut later because, she was taking, other, jobs and such, so she moved up and showed the talent.
Well, I mean, she's also the daughter of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. So.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's
I'm sorry, but people complaining about like nepotism in Hollywood, I'm like, how many family businesses have their families running it because it's been in their family for so long, and the person may not have been qualified, but they ended up becoming CEO or whatever because their dad was CEO and he handed the company off to them, good or bad. I mean, it's not just in Hollywood. People just throw it in Hollywood.
I'm not saying it's only in Hollywood, but I'm sure she,
I'm sure it opened more doors. So
exactly. The other day,
more doors. Yeah.
The other day on another podcast, we were discussing. We were discussing the Carradine family and another acting dynasty, and I don't remember what the other one was.
The Sheen?
No, not the Sheens. The Fondas. The Fondas.
Oh, the Fondas.
I remember how the Carradines always kind of stayed in B movies, but the Fondas all did A-level movies. Like, well, it's the patriarchs of your family are John Carradine and Henry Fonda. Which one of them is going to have more pull?
The pores. We all blame the pores.
Well, John Carradine had to keep working because he had to pay for David's kung fu lessons.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had to do that, and apparently,
you wouldn't want to leave him hanging.
Oh, God. I was waiting. No. I was waiting to see where that was going, and I knew you were going to go there.
I'm a terrible human being.
But coming back to here, we've talked about it. We've talked about it as the director being a visual effects guy. We'll start with you, Ian. I want to go around. Would you say this has some of the best effects out of the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, especially not just like the kills. I mean, and you're right. The high definition, the movie that does benefit from high definition. Like the one kid that gets axed in the face, the preppy guy, by the lake. His body keeps showing up, and you get a good look at that axe gash in his face. I remember, as I was younger, like hearing that there was more to that. Seeing him like, oh, is it more close-ups? Is it more gross? You don't really need it. I mean, what you see in the film is enough if you see it in a clean enough presentation. But what I love is that it's not just the effects of the gore and the kills, but that climactic 15 minutes with Jason and Tina. It's inventive. You got the gas can kind of coming to life and spraying Jason down, and then the very kind of almost like a callback to Freddy Krueger with the boiler coming to life and setting him on fire. Which this was after Hodder's accident.
The boiler room. It does look like it.
Yeah. But was this after Kane Hodder's accident?
I had to look it up because I wasn't sure if this was the movie where it happened. The accident happened in 1977.
Oh, okay.
This is way later. So the fact that he was even willing to do it is, amazing.
Yeah. But it's great all the way around. I think it's inventive. It is, one of the reasons I always love this movie is it does go in different directions as we established, but it really commits to those directions. It's not just like Tina throwing psychic blasts at Jason. He's like, oh no, what's going on? She is using the entire Crystal Lake environment to fuck him up, and it's beautiful to see.
Sean, what about you? Would you say this is probably the best effect?
I think so. For me, the kills are great, but the standout is really Jason. The design of Jason, the look. That's the best look without the mask. The deterioration of factoring that in. You can't take your eye, and also the performance from Kane Hodder. You can't take your eyes off. Whenever Jason is on screen, you're fixed on him, and every time I watch this movie in HD, I always see something new, some new little aspect. I was mainly looking at the back of his head and his face when he gets his mask destroyed, the little divots in it, and chunks that are missing from the side of his head. After the house explodes, you see little char marks and little burn marks on the side of his eyes. A little attention to details to that I absolutely love. So 100%. Yeah, I think this is the best makeup of the franchise.
What about you, Joe?
For Jason, definitely. This is the best looking Jason of any movie. He looks like a rotting corpse, which is what he should look like.
Yeah.
My big thing, and I said this a couple times while watching the movie today. I'm like, wouldn't they smell him? Wouldn't they smell this waterlogged, rotting corpse? Because he just shows up next to people. I'm like, you've got to be able to smell that this guy's coming.
Well, that's been a problem since 2. I mean, he's a hillbilly creature living in the woods. I mean, he's not showering, obviously. But yeah, the same problem.
He takes baths in the lake. It's natural spring. So
not that lake. No, I might be. I like the effect of Jason with his mask off, but I always loved that broken part of the mask where you always see his teeth, like those molars kind of grinding as Kane Hodder's breathing. I don't think
he's moving around.
You can't top that by taking the mask off. I'm sorry. I love that effect.
But one of the things that I really like about it is, everything about the entire look of the film and the setting of the film just looks great. But Hodder, I think, gives Jason some of the best personality we've seen, because I love watching Jason be extraordinarily confused, because this is the very first time he's run across someone who's beaten the shit out of him.
Sean mentioned that. He's like, what if you're Jason, what are you thinking?
What are you thinking? You're in the basement and all of a sudden gas starts shooting out of a can at you. What the hell is going on here?
He looks very befuddled at times. Like, what the fuck's going on?
Well, there's that time before that where she drops the porch on him, and he's got this look like, wait, what the fuck's going on?
The nails come flying at him.
Yeah.
He turns over the whole bottle of nails, and they all just come, The
nails come at him, and he pulls it out of his head like, what are you doing? He's like, you're supposed to.
How are you doing this?
He's like, you're supposed to turn over and die. And so far, you've electrocuted me. You've thrown me through a floor. You choked me. You broke my back. He's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why don't you just
why don't you die? Everyone else just dies.
And my favorite scene, it's small, but I think it's effective for the character. And as much as I know we've talked about her acting in here, I think it's one of the best moments of this film, because it's unexpected, is when she's squeezing the mask, which I love, the goo coming out.
Coming out, from the strap.
And he turns around and the mask breaks in front of her and it shows the grotesque face. She doesn't miss a beat. She doesn't go, ah! She doesn't go, oh my God, she doesn't make a face. She looks at her, she's like, okay, smashes a light, pulls a cord down, and starts choking his grotesque ass. She's just like, she barely even winces at what would probably be one of the more grotesque reveals. Your whole audience is like, ew. And she's just like, no, I'm choking this fucker. And I loved it. And then there's that other nuanced part where she sprayed the gasoline and she gets a little on her jacket. She's like, oh shit. And so she takes her jacket off and throws it too. They're little things. It's like, I really just enjoy their approach to this film in general. And it's a breezy film.
Yeah.
Quick 90 minutes. Quick 90 minutes too.
I at one point I went and looked at the timer again, because I was like, what are we 20 minutes in? We were 45 minutes in. I'm like, holy shit, this movie moves fast. Because I was like, this is happening kind of. It was when the mother was rifling through Dr. Cruz and stuff. Like, this is happening pretty early in this movie. Was it like 20 minutes? Oh, it's 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like, this movie does not feel like, it doesn't even feel like 90 minutes. It is very quick and breezy. Yeah.
Can you help me out with something? Because this is, I've never understood this, but it's the moment with the tent spike when Tina sees the tent spike in the door, and then Dr. Cruz later, I guess he removed it. Well, I guess, how did he know?
I was wondering that too. Did he stumble across the dead body first?
Are you saying was that a flashback?
Was that a flashback? Did he find the spike first and he knew about Jason? Because maybe he saw the spike, knew.
Yeah, why was the spike even there? Did Jason go to the house, stick the spike in, and walk away? Or was Dr. Cruz gaslighting her?
I think Dr. Cruz is gaslighting her, because it seems like, okay, she's ranting and raving about it. Maybe she is right about it, but if I make her think that she's losing her mind, then maybe I can trigger it a little bit more. The whole time he's just manipulating her every step of the way. So that seems like it would be on point for him.
Right, but like Tina comes to the house, she sees the spike sticking in the thing, then she goes in and then she tells Dr. Cruz and her mom about this vision she had about this guy being killed in the woods with a spike. And then they're like, go out and look if you don't believe me. And that's when, okay, Dr. Cruz goes out and he says there's nothing here and the spike disappears. But to your point, I think, Joe, who put the spike there and why was it? Because Dr. Cruz, we would imagine
everybody.
Yeah.
Right, but also, like, if Dr. Cruz planted it there, okay, why would Jason put it there? If he did put it there, wouldn't it be covered in blood? That wouldn't be the same spike because I was also near the body, which Dr. Cruz finds later in the woods. And also, Dr. Cruz didn't know this story until after he was told it by Tina. I don't know.
I think it's a different spike that's in the door. I think it's just a random spike, like either kids or somebody stabbed, jammed it in the door. Maybe I'm thinking
you might be right, but it doesn't make any sense.
No,
narratively it doesn't make any sense.
Narratively, it doesn't make any sense. It does seem like Dr. Cruz. I think Dr. Cruz does believe her and knows that she has this power and can see in maybe not the future, but can see these visions, premonitions, so to speak. She has this ability. So when he's just trying to bring it out more and more. So if I see the spike, I see this person getting killed with a spike. There's a spike stabbing in the wall. All right, I'll take the spike. Maybe I can trigger this a little bit more. I that's the vibe I'm getting. But how that spike got there?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
It could have just been a coincidence that the spike was that spike.
I don't like coincidences in movies.
I don't like it, but
it's the only dangling thing that kind of stood out to me. Actually, it's the only thing that kind of made me question it, but it was so little. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I almost took it because it was the first time we saw the back of the house when they're going up to it when the spike is there. So it very could have always been there, from a previous whatever, or someone dicking around or something.
I feel like there is an entirely different kind of movie that is sort of buried in this one, because later on Tina finds in Dr. Cruz's effects newspaper clippings, probably the same ones that have been showing up since the final chapter, about Jason Voorhees and the murders at Camp Blood.
It almost one picture of Jason that's like head on, by the way.
That was the last picture
because that's the last photo that guy ever took.
That's the last photo they took.
But the newspaper. We were talking about that when we were watching it. I assume Dr. Cruz put those in there because I assume he knew about all the Jason stuff.
Well, because I'm thinking, like, if he brought, like, what if he knew about the legend of Jason, and what if in his research he found out that all these stories throughout the decades of this killer who allegedly drowned in the lake as a boy keeps coming back. No one's been able to explain it or find the body because it's been in the lake, which they would have dredged. I mean, looking for the lake is not that
big.
Yes, right.
Why did nobody ever find her father in the lake either?
Right. But here's the thing, like, wouldn't it be interesting if he found this girl who had this story about a traumatic experience where she killed her father psychically, who drowned in a lake? Oh, there's also this other story about this killer who keeps resurfacing who drowned in a lake. Let me bring this girl to this psychic hotspot and see what happens. If he was trying to purposely resurrect Jason or something, I don't know. But I feel like there's another. I know Paramount was going to do like a spin-off Camp Crystal Lake series. This would be a great story to explore in that.
There was a fan film sequel which I would not recommend anybody sees. It's not good. But yeah, that's what we were talking about at the beginning. Did Dr. Cruz? I think Dr. Cruz knew all this. I think exactly what you just said. I'm wondering if maybe it just the script got cut. They're like, you know what? They'll be able to figure this out. We don't need it. I don't know. Because it happens a lot of times with these things. They're like, we're running over budget, we're running over time. Wrap it up. Well, we're just going to cut these pages here of exposition and just, I honestly, I think what Ian just described is exactly what happened. I think it's part of Dr. Cruz's manipulation.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about this is how this film really, they don't do much after it, of course, because of things that happened in real world, but they establish a lot of new things. She shows up at Crystal Lake. There's a bit of a psychic energy here at Crystal Lake now with the zombie Jason of sorts that she feels, because that's how she resurrects them, which again, I love the concept of that. She wanted to resurrect her dad, misses, and ends up resurrecting Jason.
That's the thing, though. She's thinking about her dad. She gets Jason. How do the wires get crossed? If there is a psychic cable connection, so to speak? How do these wires get crossed?
Miss Cleo was off that day.
I was going to say.
No, but I think the reason it was off, and watching it another time, is because Jason's whatever aura, energy, whatever you want, is far stronger than her dad's was. Okay. So
that could be.
She focused on that, not realizing there's another dead guy at the bottom of the lake, even if Cruz knew it. And so she thinks, oh, that could be my dad, and releases him, and then goes, oh shit, no, that's not my dad. That's some freaky fuck who,
Well, she does say, I was trying to bring up my dad, and I brought up this thing. So yeah. I mean, at this point, why not? Like, why not? Are we going to start injecting logic now?
but when Jason's up and about, then his energy, whatever, is different and not in the lake. So then she was able to focus on her dad, who helps take Jason back down to the bottom. She was able to find her dad because she was also more focused with her power by the end. She's still kind of like broadcasting a wide radar when she first gets to the lake. So that could be why she raises Jason too. But I just love that concept. I love the idea. Oh, I raised dad. Nope. You raised one of the biggest killers in history.
It's like any Ouija board movie. You think you're contacting this person, but oh shit, I contacted this guy who murdered 700 people. Whoops.
While we're talking about nitpicks, this other thing, I didn't really pick up on it until watching it this time. I'd always imagined that when Jason came out of the lake, Tina's on the dock or the whatever, and she resurrects him. In my imagination, saw him come up out of the lake because she passed out right after it happened. Yeah. I just kind of thought he walked past her and just kind of left her alone. But no, he resurfaces in a completely different part of the lake because he ends up stalking through the woods, and that's where he runs into Michael and his girlfriend. Why not just go in the direction of there's very obviously a camp with people in it. There's a whole dock and there's a body lying there that is not dead. Jason should know this.
He's still getting his bearings. He just came up. I mean, you just get resurrected again.
Right? But he's literally coming up out of the water, staring at her, and then we cut to, oh, I'm just gonna go somewhere else. Straight lines.
Maybe he thought he killed her. Maybe he thought just the sight of him killed her. He's like, oh well, she's dead.
He's not that sloppy. He's in tune with dark forces. Now, one last question, because I know we're running over here, but
no, it works.
And I hate to give the people who wrote Jason Takes Manhattan this much credit, but Jensen Daggett's character in that movie has a weird psychic connection with the boy Jason.
Yes.
Right? Do we think that's any kind of psychic residue? Oh, we've introduced psychic powers into the Friday the 13th universe. Let's play with this a little bit. Or is it just I don't know if it goes that deep, or if they're just, because she doesn't have telekinesis or anything. She's just in tune with whatever his aura is, and it's sloppy. It doesn't make sense. But I don't know. Was this a thread that they just dropped after Manhattan did nothing?
I don't know if it was a thread that they were trying. I always kind of interpreted it more as the trauma from her getting pulled down by Jason at the bottom of the lake up until a certain point. I don't understand. I mean, that whole movie is a mess. And
it's worth it for one scene in that entire movie. It is worth it for the mask. The mask lifting.
That's the meat slime bag. Yeah, that's
the only reason ever to watch it.
No. The boxing scene on the roof.
That's true too.
The boxing scene
on the roof is great.
Yeah.
Why isn't he killing everybody on the subway?
He figures they've only got a few minutes to live anyway, so he's why bother?
That gang up there is going to wipe him out.
Right? Well, we might. The repeating things from part 7, that one also, the possible telekinetic aspect, the dual villain characters, because you also had the evil student who was manipulating the principal, as well as the principal. I mean, Mark, what is that guy's name? It's a 3-name actor, but I've seen.
I can look if you want to keep talking about him.
He's always He always plays a great villain in everything I've ever seen, and he's just.
Go ahead and keep talking about him. I'll look him up.
He's perfect in this role as that. He is the guardian, I guess, of the lead. But yeah, he's the real villain of the movie, and then you got the secondary villain, the evil student who pushed
Peter Mark Richmond.
Peter Mark Richmond, yes.
Yeah.
He's very, very good at that role, and he also, much like Terry Kaiser, kind of added a little bit more weight to the cast for that one. He's one of the few things I actually like about Part 8.
But I think that part of the reason why Part 8 one of the many reasons of Part 8 that it didn't sit well with me was because I enjoyed 7 so much. I enjoyed where they were doing, where they were taking 7 and where they were possibly taking the franchise to, where I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Where are we going to go from here? And what will we go from here? Completely huge gimmick of let's put Jason in New York. And you're just like, I remember the trailer for it even.
The movie could never live up to that teaser.
That teaser was fantastic. And I'm like, okay. And then I started watching it. I'm like, what is this? What is wait?
75 minutes in. When are we getting to New York?
If you're going to do a New York cruise, first of all, that lake is tiny. So you just connect to the Atlantic Ocean somewhere.
Somehow.
And also a little dinghy.
If you're in New Jersey, why are you going to take a cruise to New York? Just drive and take the cruise from New York.
Little dinghy like that going into the docks. You're gonna have the Coast Guard.
45 minutes over the outer bridge. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Talk about a bad news cruise.
Oh, there you go. And with that, I think we'll end the discussion here on Friday the 13th, Part 7. I'll get your final thoughts. I know as people gathered, we all enjoy this film, but give your favorite death. And definitely who you would recommend this to. So Joe, go first. What was your favorite death? And then who you would recommend it to?
My favorite death is probably the sleeping bag death because it's fun and it's efficient. Who would I recommend this to? I mean, anybody who's not going to overthink it. Like you got to be the kind of person who's going to just be like, I like this kind of trash. That's got to be the kind of person that you're going to recommend it to. Somebody who's, gonna watch it and kind of just have fun with it and just roll with it, because as we've discussed here, the moment you start thinking too much about this film, it all collapses. So don't think about it. Do not put any thought into it. But before we do go, I do want to drop my coffee can. I'll pick that up in a minute. There is an art when we were watching Crystal Lake Memories, they kept talking about Susan Jennifer Sullivan, who plays Melissa, and they kept talking about her in the past tense. So Sean and I were like, whoa, did she die? So I immediately got on and I Googled her. Apparently, due to Crystal Lake Memories, there's an article in 2012 announcing that she had passed away in 2009. And then there's a correction. You're not going to see it there. It's too... there's a correction at the top of the article from 7 years later in 2020. We have learned that Susan is alive and well with more details to come. So for 7 years, everyone thought this actress was dead because apparently there was somebody with the same name, the exact same name, died, and I guess they never
dug any further.
No, she's dead. Let's not look
quit the business, went off the grid, or got out of contact. And
because it could not possibly be more than one Susan Jennifer Sullivan in this world. We're just gonna assume it's her and she's dead.
I love that. More details to come, and that was
more details to come. I'm intrigued. I need to know more.
Yeah, it was 4 years ago, and it was 8. Yeah, it was almost 8 years after the article was initially printed. So, oh man. So it took them 8 years to find out that she was alive still. I'm wondering if she Googled herself and went, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm not dead."
Maybe she was having issues getting some insurance. I'm reading that you're dead.
Yeah. Well, outside of this, she only did one other movie, two Charles in Charge episodes, and was a minor background character in Gattaca. So, and that was it. That's all she did.
I wonder if she just had a bad experience in Hollywood and just left it behind. There's a lot of people with that story too.
Oh, there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people that just split, for whatever, or they did it for a short time for a fluke to get some quick money. I mean, we were in Thinking Out Loud, we were talking about Kathy's Curse. It was where the young girl who was phenomenal in Kathy's Curse she did just that movie with her brother because they were making money to help their sick single mom. And that was it. After that, after she got some money, she got out of it because she didn't want to be in it anymore. So I mean, it's not a uncommon thing.
It could just be, I'm going to give it a couple years. If I don't make it, I'm going to go into real estate or whatever she ended up doing afterwards. And maybe that's it. If that's the case, good for her.
Yeah, exactly. Sean, what about you? Favorite death and your final thought?
Favorite death is the sleeping bag. It's an iconic kill. It's one that is stuck with me, and it's one of the few that actually got repeated in Jason X, so it stands the test of the entire franchise. I would recommend this movie to people who may have not have seen it since the 80s, to people who may not have given it a second chance and only saw it on VHS or on basic cable. I'd say, I'd recommend it to people who wouldn't give it a chance because of the MPAA. Because through the transfer on Blu-ray, the kills, even though they are still cut, they're far more gruesome. They're far more fun to watch. The movie itself is a lot of fun. And if you're just going to turn your head and pinch your nose because of all the cuts, you're missing out on something really, really fun. So definitely.
I think the Paramount movies are a lot of fun. I think the Paramount Friday 13th, for the most part, are kind of fun. I do want to read one thing. Justin Martell, who produced Subspecies 5 recently, texted me about Kevin Spurtas. Said he's a really nice guy and great to work with. So if you guys are ever wondering about that, Kevin Spurtas, who plays Nick, the love interest for Tina in this movie, is apparently a very good guy. He was in Subspecies 5.
I think he's done some conventions, if I'm not mistaken. So,
he's out on the convention circuit. Yeah, Justin says he's a good guy, really nice. So cool. It's nice to hear that from people who are working with him, and he's apparently still working. So good for him for still working to this day.
He's a great character in the movie. I love that. It's clear that he's there for his cousin's, surprise birthday party. You get the feeling he's like maybe a couple years older than these other kids, but he just has such disdain for them. He's like, I would be 1,000 miles away from you pricks if my cousin weren't your friends. And I don't know why he is your friend. But So my favorite kill, I think, has to be Ben. I love the sleeping bag death, but I just love the brutality of Ben getting his head crushed and Jason really kind of working it, like twisting and twisting. Even in the R-rated cut that you see, it clearly hurts.
And if you see the deleted version,
I'll make a little caveat. My favorite one is the unrated version of that kill. Since we don't get that in the official movie, it goes to the sleeping bag.
Sure. And who would you recommend it to, Ian?
Lovers of cinema. That's anybody who loves movies, watch this film.
Movies for guys who like movies.
Do
you guys remember that old ad campaign? Was it TNT?
Yeah.
Movies for guys who like movies.
And for me, I guess my favorite kill actually. The sleeping bag one is iconic, but I kind of actually like the one. It's quick, where he punches the guy. Just he doesn't have a weapon. He's freaking zombie Jason now, and he takes advantage of the strength he suddenly has, and he comes up behind the guy. You hear this thunk, and then when the body falls, you see this big hole in the guy's back. You're like, oh, he did that, and Jason just keeps walking. He's just like. Funk. Okay,
that guy never knew what was happening. That guy knew nothing. That guy was just alive 1 second, dead the next.
He knew nothing. And I love that. And I guess another favorite scene, and again, it leans back to our main girl Tina not being fazed by stuff too long, unlike some other final girls, where she falls. Jason's in the living room. She looks over. She screams just for a second because there's a head in the planter. But then she throws the head with the planter with the head in it still at Jason. Like she takes just a beat moment to go, and she goes, oh, it's
That's also a teleporting head because that was up in the upstairs bedroom and then it's in the planter downstairs.
Like, I was going to say Elizabeth Catan finds the head first. Yeah, I forgot that it's then in the living
Jason hit it. He didn't want to give away that he was killing people. He thought it would make.
He's a little prankster in that way.
He's a little prankster
bodies all around.
And in all honesty, I would recommend this to newer horror fans. If you're interested in watching a Jason film, but you not necessarily like a lot of the extra exploitation moments or whatever, or however you stand or whatnot with those films, you think they're, I would recommend it to this, because while you do have the one gratuitous scene in here, for the most part, this, even though it's 80s rated R, you could fall this into a harder PG-13 type crowd nowadays for the horror film. I think this would be a fun possible gateway film to maybe some other slasher films, so you could see what they were doing, that they aren't all the same formula. It has many of the same tropes, but they do something just a little different, and maybe let you explore a little more and see, yeah, there's other stuff out there besides your normal, okay, 5 kids go out in the cabin, 4 get killed, 1 survives after she takes out the bad guy. I mean, freaking Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, folks, for as much as you may throw a fit going, oh, old or cheesy or whatever, she defeats the guy by turning her back on him. Okay? I mean, there are creative ways out there besides what you might see in memes or tropes. And this is one of those examples to where it breaks away a bit from your formula, trying something new. And yeah, maybe it'll wet your whistle to see some other things.
I'd say 6 though.
Well,
I'd say 6 is the best one in the series, but
that's true. That's
how I feel about them. But I put this in the top 5.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely there. So we're gonna, before we get to our license to shill. Actually, we'll do the license to shill first, and then we'll do a little thing here to set up for next year, for 2024, since this is our last 2023 episode. So, as always with these episodes, I give a license to shill to my wonderful crew members here who are far more versed in things than myself. So, he is new here, so we'll give him the floor first. License to shill is yours. Sean, go ahead.
I am on the Literary License podcast. Once a month, I talk about Batman the Animated Series. And Joe and I have been talking about for starting up something new for 2024. As I'll say is coming soon on that. Just something that we've been kicking around. So hopefully we'll have more news soon on that.
Excellent. And Joe, what do you got to shill?
I'm also on the Literary License podcast. I'm on it a few times a month. We've been doing dark fantasy movies this season for our double features. We've been doing once a month. We're doing dark fantasy films. Once a month, we're doing anthology films, focusing mostly on anthology horror, but we've done other stuff as well. And I also recently started working for The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah.
And, I'm one of the guys who's transcribing a lot of the movies, so that taking notes and stuff, so that Joe Bob can then use the notes when he goes through the monologues, and when he writes up the monologues. He does all his own writing, and he sees the movies themselves, and then I'm putting in where the breaks should go, and that way Joe Bob's like, okay, so we're covering this in the first segment, this in the second segment, so that he can keep tabs on what his notes and opinions are and where they should go. So I've been doing that. First episode I worked on just aired, so I'll be on a couple times over the next season at least. I got a text from Austin Jennings, the director of the show, that I'll be getting a bunch of titles sent to me next week. So yeah, I've been doing that. God, what else? What else have I been doing? I don't even remember at this point. I'm just busy.
working.
My Substack, joerandazzo.substack.com.
There you go.
I'm not updating that as much as I was before I started doing all these other gigs, but I still will go on there and post reviews of my films. Some of them I'm going very deep dive. I'm doing very deep dives into some of them, so some of them are taking a little longer, but they will be out there. That's it for me. I can't think of anything else I'm doing at the moment.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, check all that stuff out. Plus, he's got a film or two. I've got one or two of his.
Oh yeah, you have at least one of my films back.
I've got it. Yeah.
Well, two, because if you have Deadly Xmas, you have the short, The Perfect Candidate, which actually Sean co-wrote.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, he did co-write that. That was 10 years ago.
There you go. Well, I got that on my shelf, on my family video shelf over here. So it keeps getting fuller, and my wife.
One of the coolest moments of my life was we called the family video nearby to see if they had it, and they did. So we went there. We just took pictures holding it. Like, first time one of my movies ever hit a video store shelf, I was like over the moon about it. The coolest, one of the coolest things, man. Nice. I absolutely loved it.
And Ian, what do you got to shill?
I am Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. Also, mostly on YouTube at this point, the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel, doing reviews and interviews and roundtables and all that and other fun stuff. Going to be talking about, Aquaman 2 coming up on Thursday. Can't wait. And I will be up on January 31st, New Year's Eve. I will be up live streaming
December.
You mean December? Or December 31st. I don't even know what day it is. New Year's Eve. I will be up at 4:30 a.m. live streaming a movie called Donkey, which is an Indian film. I'm live streaming because I'm going to be doing it with a partner in India. It's going to be 4:00 p.m. their time. So in order to make it work, yes, I'm going to be doing that with probably 2 pots of coffee in my system.
A lot of coffee in you for that one.
My God. But so check us out. Join us. This will be a good conversation for all you night owl freaks.
That's not only going to be a podcast that spans, it spans years, possibly, wouldn't it? Or, 4 p.m.
No, it'll be
on the 31st.
Time. Yeah, 31st. Okay, not crossing over to New Year's yet. But the last thing I do this year sounds morbid. But
And I guess I myself, specialmarkproductions.com for all your movie man needs. You got links to all the stuff right now for my It's Vinylly Mine record review show. I'm doing the vinyl countdown where I'm reviewing 12 vinyl records within 12 days. It's not every day because of my schedule, but there will be 12 new vinyl reviews done within 12 days as we count down to the year. So It's Vinylly Mine. We've got that. I've got 4 new reviews dropping. 2 already dropped. 2 more are dropping. Plus, I got 3 more coming. I've got the TikToks, which has my 1-minute review of Aquaman on there, as well as Wonka, 1-minute wide release reviews. I'm here with the Special Mark Productions, of course, since the spoiler room, and I do a lot of things, I guess. I'm going to probably be on Ian Simmons' podcast if he allows me in, because the DC shill. And I guess some other things to look for, folks, in Germany, if you pick up, and I hope you don't mind my shill is showing, but if you pick up the Maniac Cop 2 German release, you will get my interview with Robert Zadar, as well as the Q&A I did with Robert Zadar at the Madison Horror Film Fest about 10 years ago. They've added it as an extra feature to the German release of Maniac Cop 2.
That is great. I love Robert Zadar. Sean and I spent a lot of time with him.
He was a great
shortly before he died. He was a really, really great guy.
He was awesome. When I had him at the Madison Horror Film Fest, I got to sit the whole weekend with him and just shoot the shit with him. And he's got great stories. But yes, if my listeners in Europe, if you pick it up, you will see 2 links in the special features. I happened to make it on. So I guess that's something.
That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well, thank you for being part of that. And it's Maniac Cop as well. So I love Maniac Cop and Robert Zadar and all of that. So very cool stuff. So I know we're going a little long, but we do have our next feature. This year, we were celebrating 10 years of our podcast with our Perfect 10 series. That has now done. It is in the sunset. We are moving on to 2024 in our special series where we'll do 1 episode. It's a special theme each month for the entire year. Is PC, rated PC for pre-code. That's right. We're covering pre-code movies, 1 a month at least. And to find out which pre-code we're going to do first, we've brought back the Wheel of Random. Yes, it is the Wheel of Random, folks, where we're going to decide which film we're going to cover as our first film of our pre-code special. So let's spin the dial.
Come on, Night Nurse.
See what I got.
All right.
And we get Scarface. So Scarface will be.
I'm in. I love that movie. I'm in.
1932 Scarface. We will be doing an episode on that, and I will do a monthly theme as always, revolving around Scarface. I've already got a little behind the curtain thing that I'm going to tell everybody is that I've actually planned out this year. Not like 52 Degrees to Kevin Bacon, because that was a whole thing that Ian was a part of, to where I linked every movie by actor from the previous movie we covered, and it always came back to Kevin Bacon each month, and then I'd span it back out and bring it back to Kevin Bacon, and I did it, by God. Thank you to actually Friday the 13th, and the reason I was able to use Friday the 13th to bring it back to Friday the 13th was because the one, I think it was the truck driver or whatnot, in the first Friday the 13th did the voice for the horse in Beauty and the Beast. So I was able to start from one of Kevin Bacon's first films in January, and in December I brought it all the way back around to the first Friday the 13th by linking him to a guy who did the voice for the horse in Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, but so pre-code Scarface next month. I've got the films for each month planned out of what we're going to cover. I don't know which month we're going to cover them, but I still have the movies we'll be doing that month because saving my time. So Scarface, look for Scar themed films next month. I have to get my hands on one or two, but it'll be interesting. I'll come up with a catchy name. And thank you all for this extended episode. Thank you, Joe, Sean, and Ian, for being on here, for all my listeners, for your patience. And until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.